The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice. Good evening, or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to the Atlantic to you worldwide. Get yourself a cup of Java and find a comfy, easy chair. And get ready for Gary and his guest on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And now, here's Gary.
Well, here I am. Depending if you're a bill collector. If you're not, who knows who I am. Well, tonight we got a great show. We're going to be talking about aliens, UFOs, with an author who wrote a great book. It's called 50 Shades of Grey. Now, he'll be on right after this.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
Boy, I want to thank the station that did that new intro. I don't know really when to jump in on there because that, thunder. I don't know. Tonight, we got a great show. I'm sure you guys have heard, connections with UFOs, aliens at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Well, tonight, we got somebody who can talk about it and a whole bunch more. Ray, are you there, my friend?
I am, Gary. How are you doing?
I am doing good. And how's the weather where you're located at?
Absolutely pristine. Went out yesterday, played a little bit of golf, did some exercise today, did some things around the house. Perfect weather. Couldn't be better. And we had tornadoes about a week ago that hit 2 blocks from where I live. That was the southernmost point, and we have lots of destruction around us.
Oh, wow. We live up here in a place called Gig Harbor, Washington. We're on, we got the bay coming in, the peninsula, the salt water comes in. But about 8 miles from my compound, there's a little town called Port Orchard, Washington. Guess we had a tornado hit, maybe about 5 months ago. We've never had one like that in our state. It literally, it went through like a little shopping mall, tore off the roofs, tore a roof off of a house, and did some other damage, and only one person that luckily got hurt. But I tell you, it was there, and it was gone that fast.
Well, we're in recovery mode, so thank heavens for all the people who didn't get affected.
Yeah, but you're in the area where that happens. It tells me that earth changes or something is going on because we've never had one. And I'll tell you what, the people that saw it, it freaked them out. And I'll tell you, the news made a big issue of it.
Well, we've had 2 major tornadoes here throughout the decades, and they unfortunately hit the same city twice. They hit Xenia, Ohio, but on Memorial Day, they had 20 tornadoes in this area, and every city was affected. Dayton, Centerville, Beaver Creek, Trotwood, Bellbrook. So all the places around the Dayton area got hit.
Oh, wow. I'm glad I live where I'm at because, I only seen one time when I traveled across the country, and I can't remember what state I was in, but I saw one, and it was not that far off the freeway, and it was just kind of like taking off, building your farmhouses, the barns and stuff were like gone. And I tell you, it was really scary. Anyway, I got to ask you a question. What got you into, well, UFOs and aliens and all that stuff?
Well, as your astute listeners will know, there's a long connection between Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and UFOs, and specifically the Roswell crash records. So think back, it's 1973. I'm a cooperative education student from the University of Detroit. I'm a young electrical engineer, and I'm coming there for work study. So in the first week, I'm assigned to a mentor. His name is Al. And Al says, come on, we're going to go through the next building, which is a hangar about empty, 250 feet across, and then into a mirror image, 2-story business office where the Greasy Spoon was located. So I'm going to take you there, buy you a candy bar, kind of a welcoming gift. So we step into this totally empty hangar. It's pretty dark. There was really nothing going on there at the time. It was in disuse. Today it is the Wright Field Fitness Center, but in 1973 it was empty. And we go down this little ramp, and we're in this really dank place, and he says to me, have you heard about our aliens? And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? And he goes, no, the aliens. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there was a crash in 1947, and they brought the occupants and their machines to Wright-Patterson for evaluation and exploitation.
Interesting.
So, we're walking through the hangar, and I'm asking him questions. We're having a dialogue, and he tells me, well, they brought the aliens here, and they were in the tunnels. And I went, we have tunnels? And so all these revelations, like 250 feet worth of revelations till we get to the next building. And that was what first announced that we had a connection, because I had no idea. And then that is kind of what was in the back of my mind throughout the years as I went on, thinking about what corner of this base actually houses these aliens. So that's the start of it for me.
Oh, yeah. Now, how many aliens were supposedly at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
I would have no idea of knowing that. If you read the reports, Roswell had, a dozen, and those are potential candidates. And you have, the Aztec case where there were 24, and, there's others. So I don't think anyone knows. But there's a couple of facts that I think are immutable when you talk about UFOs and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And the first is that Major Jesse Marcel was one of the first people for the Air Force, for the government, to handle that metal. He was the one who followed the rancher back up there to Corona, brought it back, and let his chief, Colonel Blanchard, look at it, and they made that announcement. RAF, captures the flying saucer. So Jesse Marcel has been recorded many times saying, whatever it was that we recovered out there, and I know it wasn't of this earth, it went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So that's the first person witness who said that. The second first person witness was General Thomas Dubose, who was chief of staff of the 8th Army Air Force at Fort Worth. And that is the place through which the metals were flown in and then inspected and then flown to Wright-Patterson. And he signed an affidavit. Now, this is a general who said, it wasn't of this earth, and whatever it was, we sent it to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So that point cannot be debated. The what it was, that's the mystery.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know how the military tried to get by trying to say it was a weather balloon. The cover-ups and all that stuff. I've seen the area where, supposedly the UFO crashed and where it ended up at. And no way a weather balloon could ever have done that. What I found what was so interesting, when they announced it, they actually announced that a UFO crashed. But, they sure changed the story really fast, didn't they?
Well, they had to, because the world just descended upon them. And you think about it, today we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have plenty of other sources of communication. And back then they basically had, their little dial-up telephones, maybe some telegraph. And the world was just wanting to know, hey, what's going on down there? So it shut down their communication lines, and they said, well, it's 1947. We're into, 2 years after the war, and we're in a war, awareness status. So they couldn't afford to have all their communication channels shut down just answering questions about this crash disk that they recovered. So they did the only thing that they could do is to dispel this and send everybody away by creating this weather balloon story. And I think they did a masterful job of it. But, at the time, I think their motivation was just self-preservation. Hey, we got a real job to do, and that's, to keep the skies clear of the Nazis that are still out there and the Russians that want to take us over. So they did what they had to do. And unfortunately, they've kept that alive for the last 72 years.
Yeah, and to a point where now the population really don't believe the government. When when whatever you hear from the government, you go, sure. I don't know. I think they should have maybe kind of leaked it out a little bit. I don't know. But what made it bad is back, quite a few years after that, you have the Air Force and stuff talking about it again, still claiming it was nothing more than, a weather balloon. And then they even changed the story. It was like crash dummies and all this stuff they were doing, high altitude balloon, all this stuff. I mean, they changed their story and wobbled on it a couple times.
Yeah, they most definitely did. And they took a total of about 1,200 pages to do that, which is ridiculous. The anthropomorphic dummies weren't launched until the 1950s. So if they were the actual solution to the Roswell problem, then they were time-traveling dummies.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that's not the case. And if you ever look at the drawing or the photograph of Major Jesse Marcel, he's hunched over. He's like in a catcher's position, and he's holding a piece of a crumpled up weather balloon that they gave him to be photographed with. And he was told, "You're going to shut up. You're not going to answer any questions, and you're going to pose with this weather balloon." And he knew it was BS. If you look at that picture closely, you can look at his eyes, and his eyes tell you, "Boss, this is BS. This is not what I recovered. This is not what I brought you on this plane that I just flew in on." But take a look at that original photo from that session on that day when they brought him in and made him the scapegoat. His eyes just tell the entire story. It's fabulous.
I